And thank you all for joining. Thanks everyone for joining Activist San Diego's October 2023 monthly community summit. We are here live in the Joyce Beers Community Center in Hillcrest. Thanks to all who have joined us on Zoom. We are we're going to start this meeting a little bit low tech here on my phone. We've got some high tech transition happening at some point, hopefully shortly, as we begin this meeting. But don't want to delay. We've got a lot of guests who have made time in their very busy schedules to be here with us, and we want to give them space to share that which we should all be very tuned into. So I want to start the meeting just by acknowledging that we are here in this space on Kumeyaay land, unceded, and that of the Luiseno people as well. And we are grateful to be here. Also want to start with a word of acknowledgement about the multiple crises that we are experiencing always, right? But it seems they've all kind of stepped up a notch, and right now with what is happening in the Middle East is you know something we should take pause, and not just obviously pause and reflect and pray, but to take action. So Activist San Diego is standing with many organizations and individuals against all genocide, against all violence, against all people, against Israeli lives and against Palestinian lives. But the retaliation currently happening must stop. And it's been disturbing to see leaks of our government telling elected officials they're not allowed to talk about ceasefires. They're not allowed to talk about de-escalation, and that's just really disturbing to hear. And that is why we all need to be louder than ever, calling for ceasefire and de-escalation, since we know that is the only way to get to move forward. So we are going to kick off the meeting with some announcements, just some brief announcements. And I'm going to start with a guest who is joining us on Zoom. Morning, if you are ready and available. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then give us a quick couple minutes on what's happening, and including if you can mention tomorrow morning, and we'll just see who's available for that.
Hi, my name is Morning. I'm visiting town for a little bit. I'm on a Southwest tour, a speaking tour related to the Stop Cop City movement coming out of Atlanta, Georgia. Cop City is a police train, and it's proposed to be built in the middle of the Atlanta forest, which is the largest urban forest in the country. It's also its inhabitants and neighbors are also poor people and people of color. So there's a whole bunch of issues at hand here, which is more policing, the militarization of police, environmental racism, displacement of people, a whole bunch of things. So the movement has been happening for a couple of years and is still happening because the city is refusing to acknowledge a petition that was put out to put the proposal on a ballot. So people have been doing lots of things to try to stop Cop City. And there's a call for a mass nonviolent action in November. So if you're able to go to Atlanta in November, this is going to be an historic movement and day. So there's more history to it. But I'll kind of leave it at that. Tomorrow morning, there are a number of people who are going to go to the convention center where there is a chief of police convention happening. So people are making some banners and planning on holding those there for a while. So details are still being figured out. But if you have some time tomorrow and would like to take an action, then you can be in touch with me or with Francis, and we can get connected that way. And I think that's it. I think for now, unless there are specific questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So the time is still being locked down, and for those who are interested, there's a Signal chat of folks who are in San Diego who want to continue to mobilize around Stopping Cop City. So you can let me know, and I can add you to the Signal chat for the ongoing and for tomorrow. But by the end of tonight, we should have a time for tomorrow. But somehow, morning is currently the take. Thank you so much, morning. Morning. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
My name's Issa. I'm from the Power San Diego campaign. I know that Bill came and spoke last week, giving more details about our ballot initiative. Basically, we are trying to in place a non-for-profit public utility to replace SDG&E. We want to provide lower rates, no more fixed rates, and protect rooftop solar. And we're just trying to give people in San Diego an option that we haven't been afforded for a very, very long time. So this was kind of a impromptu step in on your meeting, but please, speak to Francis. She'll probably have some flyers to give out. I'm the volunteer coordinator. So if anyone's interested in volunteering, please reach out to me. So great, thank you.
Next Saturday, Plaza Olvera in Los Angeles, la comunidad mexicana, the Mexican community is gonna get together to support the next president of Mexico.
I am going to start by just welcoming our guests.
I'm Adriana Hassel. I work for the Office of the American Friend Service Committee. I am honored and happy to be here. I think that through the challenges of COVID in every way, shape, or form, over Zoom, and I'll pay money and time to be in person, even if it's with a few people or 2 people or 1 person. When the invitation came from Francis, who I really appreciate your kind card and remembering the work that we did for May Day, I was like, oh, of course, I want to be there, to be connected. But also I wanted to bring with me a sister in struggle that I tell her, like, if I ever have like a life-threatening situation, you're the one that I want next to me. Because I know that you're gonna save me, and I know that the relationship and the trust and the relationships that we have developed with X and so many other amazing people at Whiskey 8, trying to help people in between the two walls. We're talking about thousands of people by now. I want us to be as clear and as sensitive to the fact that thousands of people have gone through our county in the last 45 days. These people have come from different places. I think the data shows that over 100 countries, people have come from over 100 countries, so many languages, and so many cultures, and so many expectations, and so many dreams have been out here waiting for help and a way of being treated with dignity and humanity. And I am convinced that the people who've been out there for 40 days now, with very little resources and with very little sleep, some of us got sick. Some of us got over it pretty quickly. Others had to be away for a while longer to just get, to get better and to ensure that there was nothing serious wrong with us, or, being sick in a serious way or concerning way. But I mean, there's a lot that I could say. I think the thing that I want to highlight is that for members of certain communities, as a representative of the Mexican, Latin American Raza community, I know it has been really, really hard for people to want to come and see what's in front of us because it's too painful, because it's too difficult to deal with. I know that for mothers, especially with young children, it's just difficult to be there and to be dealing with situations where children have a fever, children have an infection, they cry at night. And I've heard from mothers that they couldn't find the strength to be there and to witness that. And at the same time, some people have that. Some people have been able to be there night and day and for 40 days now. And that is the first contact that thousands of people from so many countries have had, even before they came into contact with Border Patrol. The people serving and providing humanitarian help to the people waiting were the first voices, the first greeting, the first hi, the first what are you from, the first information that they got from anyone, even before they came into contact with Border Patrol. And that's meaningful, because had we not been there, who knows what would have happened to them. Who knows how long they would have been waiting there. I think I'm gonna pass it to Flower to illustrate aspects of the medical conditions that we continue to see at the site and how we've been able to help. And I'm convinced that we've been able to save lives, that we've been able to provide water, medication, in some ways, hope to people who were having tremendous nervous breakdowns, anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And we were able to say, you're okay. You and your family are going to be okay. And for that, I'm proud to be sitting next to Flower and also sitting kind of next to X, because he's been out there and in a very unselfish way, he has asked, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And we've told them what we needed without shame, because that's what we do for the people.
Yeah, we are going to be asking that tonight as well. So that's a message I think we all like to know too.
Just for those of us that are here in person, I want to thank you all and the people hosting us for the invitation, and for Adriana kind of bringing me along, right? Wanting to be in this presentation together, because we have spent many days, day after day, out at the open air detention sites together. I want to thank y'all because it allows us the opportunity to share our experiences and also shed light to the conditions that we see day in and day out. There are 8 open air detention sites on the border in San Diego, San Diego Mexican border here in our county, where we call home. There are 8 open air detention sites. The most accessible open air detention site in San Diego is known as Whiskey 8. Whiskey 8 has really grown on a lot of us. It has become our hub, our headquarters, and many of us spend countless hours at Whiskey 8. I would like to address a couple misconceptions about the open air detention sites. We often hear, or I've been asked by a lot of elected officials or just people in general, who else other than Mexicans are in these open air detention sites? And there are very few Mexicans, if any, at the open air detention sites, and it's people from all around the world. I think Adriana was mentioning that we have over people from 100 different countries, and it's everywhere in the world, right? From Russia, from Turkey, from Georgia, from Jordan, from Vietnam, from China, from Morocco, from New Guinea, from Cameroon, from Somalia, from all over Central America and all over South America. It's everybody but Mexicans. So when I'm speaking to people that are from other countries, and I know we do this a lot, Adriana, when people show up, and sometimes it's tourists and we see that they speak another language or they're another nationality, right away we put them to work, because it's people that are coming from other places should connect to their communities that are in these open air detention sites. We try really hard to provide culturally appropriate food. Hot meals is one of our priorities when we're wearing our humanitarian aid hat, because we know that hot food, hot meals, when experiencing trauma like this can be medicine, right? It can serve us as medicine. So that's always one of our priorities, is making sure that people have culturally appropriate, nutritious meals, hot food in their bellies. Like, that's one of our goals. Adriana also mentioned medical conditions. We have seen, I think, we've had to have very thick skin being out there, because we have seen very impactful medical situations, dire medical situations. So it's something that we deal with around the clock, people in medical distress. So we deal with having minor cuts and bruises, and fall injuries is a big one that we see out in the open air detention sites, but we've also had to deal with life-threatening emergencies. Something that I joke around saying is, like, I become a midwife when we deal with the pregnant women. I become a pediatrician when we're dealing with kids, and I become a doctor and a medic and a nurse practitioner and a therapist. And we have had the ability to really provide the little medical care that we can with our limited experience. And that's something that we've brought to the attention of not only the folks in the medical field, but also the county and also the elected officials, is that that's not adequate. It shouldn't be us having to use the few home remedies and the little knowledge that we know about medicine to provide care for thousands of people that are here on US soil in our country, asking for asylum and refuge. So for us, that's a big condition that needs to be addressed, is the medical conditions that we see in the open air detention sites. I also want to highlight a few other sites. I mentioned the closest one to us is Whiskey 8, but there are 4 other sites in our backcountry in the Jacumba area, which is more desert climate. So we always say when it's hot here in San Diego, it's even hotter out in Jacumba. When it's cold here in San Diego, it's even colder in Jacumba. And I know X has been able to go out with us, and maybe he can share a little bit about what he had to experience when he was out there, because I know I received a message from him talking about, I'm the only person here with a lot of stuff in my trunk, and I can't get out because I'm gonna get swarmed by folks. There's a really good difference is the 4 sites here in the San Isidro area. There's a primary wall and a secondary wall, and the best way I know how to describe it is it kind of feels like it's a mousetrap. In the desert area in Jacumba, those other 4 sites are open air detention sites with only the primary wall and not the secondary wall. So we're up close and personal with migrants out in those areas. Which makes it a little bit difficult when we're providing humanitarian aid in some aspects, because then we have few volunteers and sometimes 100 migrants in front of us. So I know we get creative when we're providing aid out in Hakamba because sometimes that can be a little bit difficult. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I know we'll stay to answer questions, and we'll have X kind of share about his experience being part of the Humanitarian Aid Collective. And I think it's so dope that Free Shit Collective is on the line, because Free Shit Collective has been coming through, supplying not just funds and reimbursement and bringing materials, but has been showing up in person to hold down the open air detention sites with us. So shout out to all the mutual aid, Free Shit Collective, the Rose Keep Collective, the Direct Action Drumline. Mutual aid has been 100% coming through all the way.
Yeah. Before we go over to X, I actually want to ask the two of you, because both of you work with organizations, and if you could speak to just briefly, like, and how what was the origin story of y'all, like the bat signal go out and you all show up, and how does the coordination of organizations happen, like, and is it everyone playing working really well together? Is there any challenges of that? And then and like yeah, just how did that come together? How does
So like I said, I work for AFSC, and AFSC is a Quaker-based organization. We have had the U.S.-Mexico border program since the early 70s. So our history goes deep and long here in the county of San Diego, and it's particular to the issues of immigration and border, the militarization of the border that we've been focusing and documenting for many years. So just to give a little bit of a background, as we remember back in May, Title 42 made the news everywhere, right? Because Title 42 had been the excuse that the previous administration, the Trump administration, had used to say that access to asylum or access to entering the U.S. Needed to be needed to be consistent with the COVID restrictions. And so using that, they imposed and implemented Title 42, which had incredible impact on expedited removal, deportations. I think over 2 million deportations took place between the time the Title 42 was in place. So on May 12th of this year, the news broke that, the Biden administration, since they wanted to be, they were going to lift it since, COVID had been declared an end of COVID at the global level, not just the U.S. And so the Biden administration put everything in place to do away with Title 42. So that created a situation where it was incredibly confusing for people who had been waiting under Title 42 to present their case or to be able to say, I'm asking, or I'm here to seek asylum. So that created a situation where people began to find a way to cross into the U.S., specifically here in the San Diego sector. And people started waiting in between at Whiskey, in between the two fences. We identified that development in late April, and by early May, there were groups of 25, 150, 250. So the numbers kept growing, and Border Patrol argued that they didn't have enough capacity, and therefore people were going to be waiting. Back in May, we had people waiting up to 3 days and 2 nights at Whiskey, and the only source of food and supplies that they had was what we were able to provide. So it was then when we had to quickly react to the need for hundreds of people, many with children, many young women, waiting and being very confused and very unprepared to the waiting time that they had to do out in the open. It was also in May when we had a little bit of rain. It was a little bit colder than it has been now. So the conditions were harsh for people. At that time, the Jacumba situation also developed. We had hundreds of people up in Jacumba. All to say is that May and the lifting of Title 42 gave us the opportunity to identify who was going to do what and who was willing to do how much work. So, you know, at that time, we were able to bring pieces together. We were out there for 2 weeks. And on day 14 of the series of things that we had, the humanitarian help that we gave for 2 weeks came to an end, and then this situation developed on September 7th. So we're on our 40th day of holding the space at Whiskey 8, and it's a lot of the same faces, and it's a lot of the same smiles, and it's a lot of the same hearts who bring so much to the space. And in the most unselfish and the most open way that you would think that the elected officials or the county or the state or the federal government would be willing and able to do. I mean, we have FEMA, we have the Red Cross, we have international entities that typically answer to the question of emergencies and humanitarian needs. And yet, we're still waiting. And, you know, you could think maybe it's an excuse because this is the first time, we never heard, never seen, but this is the second time that the people gather in that open space in both places here and in Jacumba, and yet nobody wants to touch the issue or say it's wrong. And so we're still waiting for that help that hasn't come. We don't think it's gonna come, but the beautiful thing is that we don't depend on that. We're not relying or assuming they have to come and help us. We're doing it ourselves. And that is when you show ourselves that we can do it independently from government, and that we should be able to create alternatives and answers and treat people with dignity, not by what the system says or what immigration law says, but by what is human, what is natural, what is expected from all of us. Because, and the last thing that I'll say is that this could happen to any of us. When we look at those families and so many people waiting and so many people coming from so far away, you know, this could happen to any of us unless you're part of the 1%, right? Unless you are for generations and generations gonna have the wealth and the resources and the comfort and the privileges. But in reality, when you are a member of the great majority of humanity, this could happen to anyone. And some of us think of San Diego as our home, and think about how you welcome people to your home, right? This is not just county jurisdiction or state or federal or an issue on immigration. This is a question of humanity. And that's what we're answering to.
So I guess, so there's the people that are at the open air detention centers, and then there's been the people being released at transit centers. Can you tell us like what the, sort of what that development works, how
The
that-
difference, so the way that I think we could best describe it is phases. So those of us in open air detention, what we see is the initial phase. So folks that are arriving for example, at Whiskey 8, in between the two border walls, we deal with the first phase, which is the panic, and you see the starvation, and you see the dehydration, and you see the not knowing where I'm at, if I'm on US soil, if I'm still in Mexico, right? Like, we deal with that initial trauma. The second phase, after being taken out of the open air detention, they go into processing. From processing, they get kind of just thrown out into what's called street releases. So right now, CBP has been releasing hundreds of migrants per day at Iris Trolley Station in San Diego. And that phase is almost like the disorientation phase, right? People not knowing where they're at, where to go next, what's next, right? How they're gonna get to their final destination. Most folks aren't staying in San Diego. Most folks have their sponsor or their family members in other places in the country, and we're just a stop on the way. So most folks are trying to get to their final destination, and the street release team has to deal with supporting folks just being dropped off in the trolley stations or at the transit centers and assisting them get to where they're actually going.
All right, I'm going to, and we are going to open it up for questions in a little while, but we're going to give some space to our other two guests.
My name is Gwen, and I often in Signal chats go by a funny name called Booty Cakes, which was given to me by an unhoused friend. So I'm a co-founder of an abolitionist mutual aid group. So our motto is we give with solidarity. We are not charity-based group. We are on the ground with folks, and all of our funds, all of our donations are sourced from the community, and they go straight back to the community that we're giving back to. So there's no one gets paid. Everything is collective. Everyone has agency. We try to not have a hierarchy of like a power structure. Everyone has a voice, and so we started back in 2021. It's a pretty funny story. We a friend and myself had been walking on the boardwalk, and we noticed this group of pro-Trump people on the Pacific Beach boardwalk, and they were harassing unhoused people, as well as they had a bunch of flags, and they were also harassing people walking by. And we decided that that space was not a reserved space, and we were going to show up one morning earlier than they got there and take their spot. And that's exactly what we did. We showed up and we took their spot, and then we just continued on. And here we are, you know, a couple years later, still on the ground, still giving back to unhoused people, helping out at the border, because currently those folks are unhoused, and we want to make sure that, you know, they're fed. Everyone deserves food and hydration and shelter, and their basic needs met. So that's what we try to focus on primarily. And to date, we've raised over $13,500 for the border, and we have given back all of that, but I think $1,800.
Awesome, amazing. And how many volunteers do you guys have at the moment?
There's one person that does most of everything, but then we have a loose collective of about 6 people. So we're a tiny group, but we also have, like, it's hard to explain. There's a lot of overlap in the mutual aid space. So like we do stuff with Direct Action Drumline, and we do stuff with like, you know, we'll send stuff to We All We Got, and they'll send stuff back to us. So even though there's just a few of us in this group, the community is larger than that, if that makes sense.
Awesome, right on. And looks like the video is almost up.
That's my left arm.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can share my-
So, Gwen, if you're gonna check for now, and then we'll go to Javier, and then we'll also open it up for everyone to be able to ask questions, and we will also make sure our guests have some time at the end to tell us exactly how we can help and where to go and what to do.
Well, first of all, I'm Xavier Vasquez, and I do a couple of things, and one of the things I've been doing lately is helping. Well, let me go back to the beginning. I got involved with the humanitarian crisis at the wall through my documentation and kind of being an embedded video documentarian for the Friends of Friendship Park. And as a whole another story, so I'll briefly touch on what I've been doing. So I've been documenting the actions and activities, protests, rallies, press conferences for the Friends of Friendship Park since consistently since February this year, but my participation was even before that. In February, we, I say we now, when it used to be they, because I've become so involved with Friends of Friendship Park that the line of documentarian, objectively, filming just blurred after a while, so I say we, and I apologize. So, back in February, we were actually at Whiskey A's. We held a press conference there because Friendship Park was closed. Friendship Park was closed since before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I started getting involved with, well, I started trying to find out how I could get involved with the group, and I started letting people know that I could help out with video documentation for any of their actions that would be coming up. And then we have this one on President's Day. So we were out there, and we were out there because we couldn't get to the park to actually do anything. So for the first couple of actions where I'm documenting, you know, this is February, no, March, so the last one was March. Yeah, everything had to be somewhere else except Friendship Park. And then there was a time when Biden came to San Diego, and we worked hard to find out where he was going to be, and word got around that, hey guys, he's going to be at Naval Base Point Loma. So, like a lot of other people that found out that he was going to be there, we got our stuff. We had banners and signs created, and we waited for them, for Biden, and I think it was the Australian president of Australia. They were going to sign some form of document there that basically talked about their new agreement, you know, to some sort of military agreement. Then as we go along, we have another protest down at the wall. This one's in the mall down there near the San Ysidro border entry. And then in April, Friends of Friendship Park were invited to SDSU to give a presentation on the actions of the artivist actions of Friendship Park, Friends of Friendship Park. And so while there, I offered my services free to document the conference, and that was a really cool experience because we got to meet a lot of other people who do a lot of border support, whether it's helping find people who succumb to the desert, finding their bodies, to helping people find people who get lost in the paperwork, to people who help with immigrant rights. And it was just amazing to see, you know, all these people doing similar work, but throughout the border, you know, from Texas to California. So that was an amazing conference to be part of. And then Friends of Friendship Park held this huge press conference down at Porterfield State Park. And zoom in on here. And there's Adriana. I just brought in the podium, and I think I put it up a little bit too high. But this was an amazing event. How many people were there at that first one? Like 400 or 500 people showed up. It was really amazing. We had another artist who came and helped with these beautiful butterflies and this giant puppet. Actually, she's having an opening at the front gallery, I think this week.
Antonia,
no, Antonia. No, it's what is her name? She's gonna kill me.
Natalia?
Natalia, yes. Natalia, sorry. Natalia, don't kill me. But yeah, so she was behind the concept of this part of this action. And the majority of the people that were here actually marched to the wall, marched to Friendship Park, because by then it was, I can't remember if it was, if we had the green light and we could hike or people could bike there, but regardless, they made it to the wall. I had to stay back and take care of my equipment there. But that was an amazing event. Here's some more behind the scenes photos. Really, truly amazing event. I'm really glad that I documented it. And then on this day, this was the second time that we had a rally there at Porterfield State Park. And this was my first time getting on the beach and getting that close to the wall there at the beach. At that time, it was just this concept, this theory, this myth, of, Friendship Park. And it was a sight to see for me, really, because, before my involvement with Friends of Friendship Park, my only interaction with the border was crossing by car, walking, and I never really thought of it as this larger than life thing, that has so much meaning and so much, it provides so much harm, it never, that's, to me, I would hear that, but it never really connected with me. Then, let's see, June 18. Yeah, after the park started becoming open, officially, you could actually drive up there. We were able to do more actions on the beach to show others, this is what Friendship Park could be. It could be a place for enjoying the beach and meeting your friends on the other side of the border, which is what the original intent was for the park. But because of the federal government's rules and regulations, officially this is as far as you're supposed to get. But of course, we pushed the limits, and there were times where we actually walked up to the fence and we're actually able to talk to people, reach across and touch people, which pissed off Border Patrol, because they're always afraid of contraband being passed over, whatever. And so there was always this threat of like, we're doing something and maybe we might get a ticket, we might get fined or arrested. But, for everybody who crossed the line, went up to the fence, I think it was about not really giving a shit about that and doing something that should be natural, should be allowed without the threat of prosecution. And a couple of actions, I actually followed two volunteers from the Friendship Park group up to the garden, which they had been prohibited from tending to since before the pandemic. And here, two of them, and I follow these two people. And the construction workers and Border Patrol were actually kind of shocked to see us walk that far with the intent of working on the garden, and it was pretty surreal. I don't have the footage here, but I have footage of the different agencies that are involved in regulating that area. It's not just Border Patrol. There's Homeland Security. There's state parks. The sheriff's office. I mean, it's just crazy the different jurisdictions that overlap in that area. And so I think it became like this bureaucratic mess for them, so when the discussions were like, what are we gonna do with these people? They were just like, fuck it, just let them stay there. I have no idea, but that's what it felt like. And so eventually we all left. Actually on this day, I was prepared, you know, if I ever got a statement from any of these law enforcement people, you know, if they started saying anything like, we need you to leave, we need you to move out from this area, then my role was to leave. And, you know, I think in a lot of ways, just to preserve, you know, the video documentation that I've been able to complete up to that moment. And so that happened 2 more times. We continued to do more actions, and then one day we found out that they were destroying the garden with by removing some of the plants that were, you know, some of the native plants that were planted there on purpose by the Friends of Friendship Park, whose mission is to tend to the garden, and that alarmed everybody. So a couple of days later, we went back. And we took those plants that they removed from the garden and put them back where they belong. And again, because the jurisdiction, nothing happened. At least that's what a lot of us thought after that day. And here's this is an image of the plaque that reads, during a border encuentro on March 24, 2007, community members on both sides came together to plant a truly binational garden of native plants. Its purpose is to create an area where people can make friends across the border and collaborate to promote native habitat of our region. The garden captures a wild feel while maintaining the an intentional community space with a design of circles that connect to the border. And when you take an aerial photo or a satellite image, you can actually see what they're talking about. And there is an actual mirror garden on the other side, which is now under threat of destruction as they continue to build Trump's 30-foot walls that are coming from the beach towards Friendship Park right now. I think any day the Mexican side will be harmed really, really bad. And this is an image that I got from Will. He had his drone out there on this second action that they did. And you can see, maybe you can see me holding the camera here. Oops. There's that. Yeah. Oh yeah, there I am. I'm wearing the black t-shirt. But yeah, so this is law enforcement taking pictures of us, shooting video, and they're just there to tend the garden. That's all they ever told law enforcement whenever they asked. You know, or whenever they started talking to them, they would say, you know, we're here to work on the garden. We're here to work on the garden. Which is the truth. Let's see. This is the shot from the garden looking out. Another one of Will's satellite drone photos. And so again, like I said, we thought, okay, so that's it. You know, they didn't really do anything to us, but they did do something. And this is what they did. Before this area was open, and you were able to walk or even look this way and see between the secondary wall and the primary wall. Well, on that day, July 30th, they had this new barrier up, which was a direct reaction to their action, which was a pretty bummer, but we understood, you know, what that meant. And so we continued to do actions, we continued to show up and enjoy the beach on Sundays, and here's Maria Teresa and Adriana. On this day, this guy, Agent Contreras, don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I do know that he was a bit perturbed that people were down there getting too close to the wall and touching the wall and talking to people across the border. Yeah. And then eventually, there was another action. And again, Natalia was involved in this. I donated these huge huge sheet of canvas that I purchased a while back to use for projections that had never been used, and Natalia cut them up into strips and painted these amazing slogans to be draped across the border. And so on this day, she climbed the ladder. I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. So there's the tire climbing. This is on the Mexican side. And so they had these banners draped on the Mexican side and on the US side. A mixture of Parque C, Moros No, and No 30-foot walls on Kubi Island. And again, that was an amazing experience, amazing to document it, to work, to be associated with people who think like this and do things like this. Really amazing. And yeah, so after that, Hillary comes along and messes things up. This is me down there doing my little hurricane watch. A little disappointed because the storm didn't come until real late, but I was down there just to document the beach, because at that time, a lot of us were preparing for the worst. We thought that this is going to be a life-changing event, and I was thinking that it was, life-changing. It's going to be beach-changing. So I wanted to be down there to document the beach, to get a good before and after documentation. It was a pretty uneventful evening, afternoon, and I got some good photos, good footage of the beach. But the aftermath really wrecked a lot of the ideas and plans that we had for Friendship Park of really utilizing it, because we're all just getting used to actually being able to go there, driving up to the park, parking, so there are thoughts of like having picnics, having, concerts out there, getting permits to have other events out there. But Hillary really messed that up. Not only because it flooded the area, but because it damaged the sewage pumps that they have out there for collecting sewage that crosses over from Tijuana. And because the infrastructure over there is really designed for the amount of people that are living over there. And so after Hillary, a lot of that sewage just merged with a lot of the rainfall and polluted the entire area to get to Waterfield State Park, and then to get from Waterfield State Park to Friendship Park. And so State Parks closed it, and it's closed indefinitely right now. This is, I went out there on my motorcycle. I'm not sure what date this is, somewhere here. Yeah, August 19th, so it's like 10 days later. It's still closed. Then later on, we find out, officially that it's closed. And so I was curious. I'm like, what does it really look like? Are they just saying it's closed because they don't want us out there? So I went out there and with some friends, to really get a close look. We were able to drive to the Waterfield State Park entrance. We parked, and then we got out to see, hey, maybe we could ride our bikes. Yeah, no. It's so disgusting. This is sewage mixed with water. And normally you could walk straight down that path and then hang a left, and then hang another right, and then another left, and then you're at Friendship Park. But I'm not, walk through that. Yeah. So it's really amazing, and it just makes you just wonder, why hasn't anything been done about this throughout the years, the decades that this has been a problem? It's a larger question, for two countries to really talk about. Really, it just boggles it. A lot of us don't get it. Why this problem hasn't been solved yet. Because we can do a lot of things. We can erect 30-foot walls. You can dig trenches in the beach and build these giant monoliths to, authoritarian ideals, but you can't, fix the sewage problem. And so, one Saturday, I decided to enjoy Friendship Park from the Mexican side, because I'd never done that before. And went on these beautiful days, September 6th, September 9th. Yeah, so I'm out there with my friend, and we're walking around, and I brought my drone, and took this is a photo of the actual Friendship Garden from the Mexican side. What I showed you before was our friends just on the other side of that metal right there. And then this is an image of me putting my camera through the fence and shooting an image of 30-foot behemoths. And again, this is Mexican side looking west. And this is sticking my camera inside the wall and shooting this photo of those brand new 30-foot walls. Again, this is looking actually towards San Isidro, looking east. So when Flower and Adriana earlier were talking about this area where the asylum seekers were stuck, this is it. This is their prison. This is their hotel room. This is where they're supposed to survive for the, I don't know, some people are there for like 3 days. Yeah, so, yeah. Again, this is, we're back to Friendship Park on the Mexican side. There's Uncle Sam lurking across the wall. And then I inserted this image. It's the centerpiece of the zine that I made because it's actually a really cool spread to have in the middle of the zine because it shows you how to get to Friendship Park. You drive when you could, and then you park here, and then you can enjoy the beach here. Talk to your friends over here. Not anymore, at least until they open it up again. This is the piece of the Parliament wall that was donated. I can't remember the name of the organization, but somebody did this amazing thing and they got it installed there at Friendship Park, which is, I haven't really wrapped my mind around what it means to me, but I just think it's pretty fascinating. Let's see. There's an image of U.S. contractors digging in the sand, building their castle. Here they are with their Tonka toys, little toys digging in the beach, where we're not allowed to go anymore. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Friendship Park is a beautiful place, and the question always comes up: why can't we have this? Why is it that this beautiful place only exists in Mexico? Why can't we have that same thing? This monument, this is actually United States. This is the United States right here. But because the government doesn't want, I don't know what they think it is, but it's almost like we don't want to have anything to do with that, so we're just ceding that part of the land, part of America to Mexico. Okay.
Wow, thank you for giving it.
Yeah, so there's this, for me personally, I'm gonna back up a little bit. In 2019, I was asked to help, I got hired by Jim Brown at Bread and Salt to help with this event that was gonna be at Bread and Salt. They needed somebody to do AV, provide a projector, provide audio, microphones, and there was gonna be this very important video playback. All I knew was that Via International was involved, and that Jim Brown thought it was important. So I definitely said yes, I could help out. And then they gave me the video to play back, and I was blown away by what I saw, because in the video it shows Pat Nixon former President Nixon's wife, here in this exact spot back in 1971. And she's walking through this like wire fence, walking across and shaking hands and, you know, welcoming people on the other side. And I'm blown away, not only because it's the first lady doing this, you know, walking from, you know, basically San Diego to Mexico, and you know, there's no ginormous walls, there's no border patrol, you know, yelling at her. This is 1971, right? Also, at that same time, in 1971, my dad was Nixon's projectionist. We lived in Camp David, Maryland, where the president, you know, the second White House is. In the White House at that time, the president always had a projectionist that worked at the White House, because back in that time, if, let's say, the military made a film to show other parts of the government, you know, something they want to communicate, like we do today with little videos. Oh, I made a PowerPoint. Let me show it to you. Well, back then you had to use film or slide projectors, you know, or film scripts. Well, my dad was Nixon's Nixon's projectionist for about 4 years. And so I'm looking at this video, 1971, I'm like, holy shit, 1971, we're living in Camp David. My dad was working for Nixon, so he's probably flying around with Nixon, or, you know, I'm just thinking, holy shit, this is crazy. So that's what really hooked me to be involved with Friends of Friendship Park, this knowing about the connection. Yeah, so working on the wall, blah, blah, blah. And then here's my drone screenshots. Actually, these aren't, I took photos actually. I really wanted to take these photos of Friendship Park. So here you can see no man's land, and then Friendship Park that we're allowed to enjoy here, right above this wall. And then here's the beautiful Mexican Friendship Park. Lights. Why can't we have that? I'm just going to keep saying that. Why can't we have that? Why can't we have that? And then here's where, you know, they're right now, if you went on the Mexican side, you would see these giant 30-foot walls here. And they're going to creep up and destroy all of this, and probably destroy all the murals, the garden. I don't know if they're going to be careful about the monument, who the fuck knows. But all that's going to be replaced with these 30-foot prison walls very soon. And so on that day, as we're walking around and trying to decide where we should shoot more drone footage or whatever, we noticed some people climbing the fence. And I'm like, does that happen a lot around here? and I didn't give it much thought, but my friend who I was with, they immediately went to the wall watching group chat that he belongs to see, you know, if a repeat of May was occurring. And yeah, it was. The numbers were small, but they started to notice that there was little groups starting to show up in various parts of, you know, what I was just what I was describing as no man's land, in between the primary wall. Primary wall is right up on Mexico. That's where the border really is. Secondary wall is the wall that keeps us away from that wall, basically. And so, yeah, people started to appear in there. And so Saturday goes into Sunday, and I'm now also monitoring the wall watch, the group chat for the wall watchers. And I started to notice that people in the group chat are asking for help, specifically for helping the people who are trapped charge their phones, because there wasn't a charging station out there. previously they had a charging station area for their phones because having a fully charged phone is very important for people, for these asylum seekers, because if they don't have the app, the problematic app, then they don't get processed. And so Border Patrol is not going to help them, of course. Border Patrol doesn't even provide them with water. They don't provide them with a place to take a dump. You know, they don't provide them with a place to sleep. You know, they get trapped in there, you know, they don't really care. And so I was like, well, I have a voltage inverter and I have extension cords coming out in the wazoo, and I have a little table, so I threw that in my van and drove down there. And these are some of the first images of that Sunday night. There's more. And yeah, so this is somebody waiting with a kid. Here's you know, this at this moment I had no idea what was coming. This is my first time ever experiencing, you know, helping people out in this, you know, this form. But I just felt like compelled, you know, it's like people need help, you do it, you know, you don't think about it, you just do it, right? And that night I was there with another friend, and we relieved some people who were there all day long. And our intent was to stay there until like, you know, maybe 11:30 or midnight. Because I had things to do, but I wanted to stay out there long enough to help these people with charging their phones and make sure that they had something to get processed with. And yeah, I had my camera out there documenting. There's a little table with a little inverter. You know, there's this, you know, this is like bare bones. And eventually, I have video of it, but I'm not sure where it is. But I have video where this agent arrives, and he comes up in a very with a very dickhead attitude, and he's telling us, you need to stop what you're doing. You're not supposed to be this close to the wall. You need to step back. And we're like, but we're charging the phones. Like, people have been doing it all day. They did it before. He's like, I don't care. Whatever you know, you were told earlier. You know, you need to step away. You need to stop what you're doing. And so that's what we did. We didn't want to cause any problems. We didn't want to risk ourselves at that time. You know, if they tried that bullshit again, I would not move an inch. But yeah, so in the zine you can read all this. This is sort of a quick rundown of what I'm telling you right now. And let's see. So this is Monday morning. There's Adriana, and there's a bunch of other volunteers. I get chills thinking about this because it's just, you know, you see the hand right there, somebody's hand reaching through, and that to me just says so much. I don't know what to say, but it's just, people need help. You know, you help them. This is later on that night. Supplies started to show up. You know, people, you know, Free Shit Collective was probably responsible for a lot of this shit. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, so supplies start to arrive.
Xavier, how long was it before you got the table back into position where you could charge the phone?
You know, you mean after getting shooed away by Border Patrol?
Yes, I do.
The next morning. We brought everything back the next morning. By then there were generators.
You wanna, Bill, hop back over
Yeah, sure.
with a question over.
Yeah, I'll take the media and you can take the elected official. Yeah, you know, I think media maybe for the first 2 weeks, maybe the first week and a half, So like from September 7th to like September 15th, 16th, because that's when we had a greater number of people waiting. So that really brought like media attention. And I think for maybe that week and a half, media was consistent and wanting to know like, so what happens? And then, the street releases began like a week and a half after the beginning of setting up the stations. And I think for the most part, media has been relatively sensitive and kind of covering it to the best of their abilities. There seems to be a difference between how Spanish media, I think Spanish media has a little bit of a more level of sensitivity than how sometimes English media, like, and I'll just be very brief because we had KUSI and we all know how KUSI works. I know that they're going through a transition because they were bought by Fox 5. But for whatever reason on that day, KUSI, the guy was out there for like 2.5 hours, right? And it's like either looking for something or like not wanting to interview the ones that the people who were there, but essentially he kind of gave up and interviewed us, and the coverage came out pretty good, I mean, they could always do better, but so I think for the most part, media has been, I would say, sensitive, but not always there. So what happened after the second week is that we didn't see media for maybe 2 weeks. Like if it wasn't happening anymore, like it was not on the news, it was not, like it was put away, like it's not happening anymore, when we still had big numbers out there. So I think that that's one of the, if anything, like criticisms or things to raise to media, like you don't get to decide when to, when it's an issue or when there are, situations of like humanitarian needs, just because, you don't have the assignment for the day. So I think that's like something for media to keep in mind, that when they left, we still had people in great need. And, you see here, people engaging with people on the other side throughout the day, throughout the night. And the cell phone issue, as X mentioned, is a question of staying in contact with loved ones at home or from, back at home. And it's a way of staying connected and letting other people know that you're safe or, relatively safe. So I think media could always do better, but it's also a lot how we message out, right? Like how we communicate what we're doing. So I'll pass to Flower for the car one.
So I tend not to do media interviews, so I was really glad Adriana was happy to cover that. I've done very few out there. I'm more of a behind the scenes type of person. So in terms of getting responses from elected officials, it's been very difficult. So we've seen elected officials at all levels, whether it's city, county, state, or federal level, they have not been responsive to the needs at the open air detention or the street release sites. I will give State Senator Steve Padilla credit, because credit is due there. His office has been consistently present at the open air detention sites at all 8 of them, and they have really been applying pressure where it needs to get applied for us to get even the most basic things like restrooms, and they've just been very helpful and supportive of the Humanitarian Aid Collective. So other than Senator Steve Padilla, there hasn't been a response until recently. The county just approved the $3 million that is going for the street release team. It is not coming to us at the open air detention, but at least that's something, right? I think that's really the only update I can provide on the support from elected officials. Adriana mentioned that people are very hands off the issue, so people do not want to get involved. At least that's what we've seen. We have seen elected officials not wanting to touch the issue, and show that few that have tried to say, like, I'm here unofficially, right? And for us, that's not going to fly. We're not going to allow that. We have had some offices come and tour the site. So Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs' office has been on site. We've had Alex Padilla's office on site. We've have had a few local folks. Eric Joyce out of Oceanside has been supportive and on site. City Council member Maria Nunez out of San Marcos has also been supportive and on site. So we've had very few, and really not the response that should be expected from elected official. And I will end just by sharing the resilience that we have seen on both sides of the wall. So we really have created a network, but more so a family, those of us at the wall. I know you asked a question earlier around how have we meshed, right? How have all these organizations and people from all walks of life come together? And it really has been because our focus has remained to save lives at the open air detention site, to greet people with dignity and respect as they're arriving to our home county. And that has really kept our focus. And it has allowed us to create a collective and a network at the open air detention sites. And like I've said, I don't know if Booty Cakes is still on the call, but like I've told my sister, Booty Cakes is we're family now, right? Like when we call upon each other, we have been showing up. And even after this is over, if Booty Cakes ever calls me and tells me she needs anything, I'm going to show up for her, because that's what they have done for us. And we will always reciprocate that. And I'll give that
Give it to
back.
Booty Cakes.
Yeah, give it to Booty Cakes.
Yeah. All right, Booty Cakes, you're on the microphone.
I agree 100% with Flower. It is no longer just a network of people that know each other a little bit. We are all family. I mean, I bring my child, I bring my dog, my partner comes, we're all cooking meals out of our homes, bringing them down. So it's very surreal to see an international crisis in front of you and know that there are fewer than a couple hundred people funding, on the ground, networking, dealing with media, driving back and forth to Hakamba. It's it's incredible to see the community come together. It's also, it's not surprising to me or unexpected, but it is very deeply disappointing to see elected officials who say that they support asylum seekers not engage at all. I mean, we're talking, people have called. In the very beginning, I can remember I called Juan Vargas's office sobbing. We need you to engage, but nothing. We're seeing that across the board. And there's so many similarities that are happening at the border that Border Patrol does, that I also see our law enforcement and city officials do to unhouse people. And I think that the connecting factor there is the dehumanization. It's not something that just happens. It's a very well thought out, calculated method of dehumanizing people, so that the majority of people are like, oh, we don't want those people in here. Look, they're dirty. They don't pick up their trash. They don't throw their things away. And that's deeply concerning to me as a human being, because the people on the other side of that wall are so grateful and thankful and I mean, we're giving them water. We're giving them, here's a cup of noodles with an egg, and they don't complain. They're just like, thank you so much. So it's good to see on one hand, but it's also concerning and hard to see on another. And something else I wanted to bring light to is we have had an increasing we've had increased I want to say like lurkers, people that are driving by the wall that may not have good intentions. I don't know if this group is aware, but there was a migrant whose foot was run over out in Hukumba. I believe it was last Saturday. I was actually there. There were some maybe young 20, late teens that decided to come all the way back to a site, do wheelies, kicking dirt and rocks onto migrants. And then in that process, one of the vehicles crashed into like an embankment. Um, Thankfully, he couldn't start it again. So I was super happy about that because karma in real time is nice to see. Um, but he had to have it towed out, and in that process there more vehicles came and they ended up running over someone's foot. So um that is being dealt with some immigration attorneys and some organizations that are willing to work with law enforcement to get that migrant taken care of. But it's not just a family. Also, we're out there and we're just feeding people, but it can at times be concerning. We do have to be concerned not only for our safety, but for the safety of the people that are coming here who are also fleeing very dangerous situations themselves and have been in dangerous situations many times. Beaten. Um, so I want to, I think we're trying to give everyone a full picture um, of what this effort has looked like. Um, and there are days where we're all just in it and we see each other and we're hugging each other, but it's hard. It's hard to see these things. It's hard to see these human beings treated this way. And it's hard to come back to your home with all the comforts that you have and not feel some sort of just overwhelming sadness and guilt that these people are being treated this way, and you're over here doing your thing in your nice house. And um so I guess that's really just what I wanted to say, just to kind of give another picture of what we're dealing with on the ground.
Thank you so much, Gwen. Can you say specifically, if someone comes up to you and says, "How can I help?" What do you say to them?
um Honestly, funds are the best. We do take physical donations, but because the things it changes so quickly, right? In the beginning, we were seeing hundreds of people in any given moment coming through. You'd be just thinking you were done with a wave of people, and you'd look to your left, and here came another 100. Um, and at any given point, there were thousands of people coming through Akamba. So um, now we have supplies, but the things that we need often change on what we need to be replenished. But Free Shit does have we have an Amazon wish list that someone thankfully did for us because I just can't do anything else. Um, we do have Venmo and Cash App, and then if someone just sends us a DM, we are on Instagram mostly. We do have Twitter. We prefer to communicate through Signal, which is an encrypted app. So if someone DMs through Instagram, I'll ask them if they have Signal. If they do, then I'll talk with them over that. And then we can get them lined up with how they want to help. Get them in the Irish chat if they want to help with street release. Get them in the border relief chat, which is usually Whiskey 8, and go from there. So it just changes minute by minute. So usually what I see that we need the most of is we need people in the morning and late at night. Um and we just need, basically right now we need food. And easily, we do a lot of eggs, we do lots of cups of noodles, we fruits and vegetables, not, I'm sorry, not vegetables. We take that back. No, fresh vegetables, please, because they sit in the coolers and then they spoil and then it's nasty. So, but like bananas, oranges, apples, those are great. Um, and if anyone wanted to cook for people, like, hey, I like to cook for folks in my home, they could hit us up and we'd be like, hey, this is how many meals we need. Can you make them and take them here? So I just try to coordinate between like I'll message We All We Got and be like, hey, what do you guys need at the airport? Or, they'll message me and we'll try to shuffle things over that way. Or if Iris needs people, we'll shuffle things over there. So the best way is just to send me a DM through IG or send funds or also message to find out what donations we need at any given time.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And do any other questions from the audience? And then the rest of the guests want to tack on anything to that question of how folks can help, if you want to tack onto that, and maybe also even maybe just say how can we even emotionally support you if there's ways that your community, beyond the physical, you guys are really putting yourselves on the line in a really major way, and just want to say that we want to make sure you're okay as well.
I can add to the first part. I always tell folks that the first step you can take is to show up. So, and sometimes it's hard for us because as being part of the wall leads that are always tasked with something, it's hard to sometimes even take a step back to think of what is needed. So if folks can show up to see the situation for themselves, I always say that's the first step, right? And then you can kind of see what's needed. Like Booty Cakes mentioned, things are changing by the hour. So what we need one day is not usually what we need another day or just the next day. So show up and be in community with us out there at the border wall. That's usually my first ask. And I agree, funds, just direct funds are great because then we have folks like Free Shit Collective that are buying the items that we need in real time at the moment we need them. So that's really helpful.
Wait, when someone says I'm going to show up, tell them where exactly do they show up? Like they just literally can go at any moment somewhere?
Yeah. To Whiskey 8 is usually like the orientation place. So Whiskey 8 is located right off Dairy Mart. So we're more than happy to share the coordinates or the location for Whiskey, but that's our hub. That's where you should go if it's your first time going.
Cool.
Is it the same place where you were in May?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same place as May, yeah. Whiskey 8 is the only location that we are able to be in contact with people. Whiskey 4, we don't have access to it. The Schooners Camp, which is for men, we don't have any access to it, and also 91X, we don't have any access to it. So it's we left so much out, in part because I think we haven't processed a lot of it. Seeing the images is, I want to get up and clean trash that I just saw right now. It's playing with me. But one of the things that I think it is important to remember is that from Whiskey 8, we were sending food for the men who were isolated and who didn't have access to food and water for days. So
actually, this video shows when the men got separated.
Right.
This day that I was shooting.
Right. So, keep in mind that it wasn't it's not just the people who are at Whiskey 8. We were making food for people up. And, sometimes we had a number of up to 400 men up there. So we had to make the food in you have 2 hours. And at Whiskey 4, at any given time, anywhere from 150 to 250 people. So we're, the work and the coordination that has to go into preparing and I think like it was said earlier, like paying attention to the things that are needed and having the money, having the funds to purchase those items is the best way to the way that we've learned to work and to be able to answer to the needs at the site.
Michael, can you come walk over here and use the microphone for your question?
Adriana, I was there on the 16th in the midst of the busy time, I guess. And I asked you then if there weren't enough volunteers to call me, and you haven't called me. So is that a fair indication that enough people are showing up?
Yeah. So one, I kind of think it's unfair to put those of us that have been there day and night in that kind of position to make sure that we're returning calls, because a lot of our families haven't even seen us or spent time with us because we're always on site. So sometimes, and Adriana can vouch, we're running off of 2-3 hours of sleep a night. I'm part of a team that rotates through all 8 sites plus the street release sites. So not only am I at Whiskey 8 making food for Spooners, for 91X, and for Whiskey 4, then I'm physically traveling from Whiskey 8 to Jacumba to O'Neill, Willows, Valley of the Moon, and Boulevard Tower 177, all within 24 hours. So just to answer your question, if you think that I'm gonna spend time to answer, or to remember to answer one person that told me at some time weeks ago that I probably wouldn't even remember who, what, where, when, why, because my days are blended. Sometimes we go to Whiskey 8 and I tell Adriana, what day is it? You're right. Like, is it Monday, Tuesday, or what actual day is it? Right. So that's why our first ask is for people to show up in person, to see Whiskey 8, to see what's needed, because then that takes that responsibility off our shoulder for those of us that are around the clock there, right? That takes that logistics and coordination off our shoulder. If folks really, really want to help, you have to show up, you have to be present, or you have to open up that pocketbook and send Booty Cake some money so she can show up and she can buy the stuff we need, right? So that's how I would answer that question. Volunteers are always needed.
Oh, there's the answer right there.
Yes.
Volunteers are always needed.
Any-
And one other thing, the night I was there, people really needed flannel pants and hoodies. You say needs are changing. I've assembled a small group of such clothing items. You still need those? I imagine.
Yeah. We never turn away donations. It's really hard to get donations. I mean, the needs are always changing, so we might need them not one day, but then the next day, or we'll figure out where they need to go. We triage our donations. So if people ask me, I'm always going to tell you 2 things that are always needed no matter what, and that's water and blankets. All the other donations are welcomed. It might not be needed immediately or that day, or even if we don't need it at all, we'll find an organization to make sure that they can make use of it. For the warm clothing that you have, we might not need it at Whiskey 8 today. We might not need it at Whiskey 8 today, but Iris Station needs it because they're sending people to the East Coast where it's cold, or to places that are cold that will use the blankets. So we'll never turn away donations.
There was a question in the chat, and just maybe you can answer just to be so it's very, very clear. Someone asked if there's like a volunteer sign up form or somewhere where they can get on a list. And maybe
We do have a sign up sheet that goes out with the network of the volunteers. But what I would suggest is for that person to provide us with a name and a phone number that we can contact, and then include that person into the chat so that they can see, kind of the time, right? I mean, I think it makes it a little bit difficult to say, we need 5 people or 7 people tomorrow at Whiskey 8. As of the moment that we're coming here, we didn't have anyone at Whiskey 8, and we think that has to do with a couple of recent developments at the site. Is one, the passing of the 29-year-old female from Guinea that took place on Wednesday at 5:45 at Whiskey 4. And that's a situation that we have been telling Border Patrol that was going to happen because of the medical emergencies that we have been seeing. And it happened, right? She was 29 years old from Guinea, was traveling with her cousin and a friend of the family, and she died. In our county, about less than a mile away from Chaparral. So we feel that Border Patrol is doing a lot and everything that they can do to keep the spaces clear from people, because this was a big thing that we lost a life, and we had been saying that for weeks that was what was going to happen, and it did.
Well,
So first of all, just, I love the heart and the sentiment that you bring to this work, and the sincerity and the solidarity. And, it's inspiring to all of us, to be able to give everything you've got to do it. And while many of us are spinning our wheels every day for good causes, this is really beautiful. I was thinking about what kind of solidarity tours might help build attention to this. Airbnb and those kinds of things is experiences, and to be able to give a tour. They give a tour of all kinds of absurd stuff. But the need for people-to-people kind of solidarity tours to bring people down and something that they wouldn't otherwise know or experience, and to use it as a source of funds and expanding the network. And I think that Activist San Diego, for example, could, we should get a bunch of other people and say, we're gonna go down together, and each of us puts off, from one day to the next with all of what we got to do. But let's try to make and commit to going down there and bringing others and to get close, because you can't, Javier, is it? Xavier. Okay. Thank you for bringing us close and bringing the images and the faces that are walled in, and that we need to be close to. And so I think we should commit ourselves to getting close, because it opens up hearts, it opens up eyes and attention, and we've got networks. I do want to take up just a second, because that image of the Berlin Wall and this wall and the walls around Gaza are just cutting deep into my soul. Deep about what's happening and the atrocities. And this is just getting us used to having people behind walls and to be a part of a discriminated class, less human than the rest, not deserving water or toilets or electricity and all of that. And also, you know, that in Gaza, we know the expulsion and the criminal taking of lands and the persecution of people causes migration, whether it's forced or otherwise. In the end, migration is almost always forced. People don't come to the border except out of dire necessity. Nobody leaves home where it's warm, safe, comfortable, sustainable, survivable. So, you know, this is our Gaza. You know, we want to connect those issues, and we want no atrocities there and none here on our borders.
Thank you, Martin. I think that's I think that's a great idea, but I just want to make sure that we don't make it a tour to go, oh, look at the poor people, but tour of yeah, let's go and help. Let's go and do what needs to be done, and maybe do it in a more permanent way so that there's more of us doing it, and that you guys can get at least a couple of days a week off, right? Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'd like to build on, my name is Yusef Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Activist San Diego. Sorry I'm late. I was at a memorial service for one of our people who died in custody up in Julian. Her family lives in Julian. So I'm just not getting here. I apologize. I want to build on Martin's suggestion, is that let's make one of our community meetings down there during the daytime, not in the evening like now, down when they need it. Let's all these hands that we have here, we can take them down there and really make an impact. Take some food, take some supplies, take things like that, and make our community meeting in a community down there taking care of business.
November 20th?
November 20th, we will have our next meeting, and we expect and hope that many people will join us and come here and learn what Activist San Diego does and be a part of our team here and help us plan and strategize for next things that are needed in the community. We really appreciate your attendance, and we want to make sure that we stand in solidarity with all these other organizations that need help. And we can be creative in our way that we help. Sometimes, if we can't get down to the border, we can do things where we are and get it to the people who need it. In North County, I'm a board member of Interfaith Community Services Center, proudly, and there's a lot of drop-offs in North County at the bus station in Oceanside, and we take in people there, we feed them, we get them to the airport when they need to go, and we shelter them until they need to go. So there are a lot of things happening in other places as well. Please contribute in some way. And don't forget the people who are working on the ground at the site while we do it. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Thanks for coming out.